Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I am a voice teacher. Today I will be reacting to and analyzing Tash Sultana performing Jungle live bedroom recording. So I just wanted to point out before they even started singing that we first listen with our eyes. So everything that they're doing visually is already priming us so that as soon as they start singing, we're going to be engaged. We're going to be on their side already without having to be like, oh, we're tuned out, nothing really is happening and it sounds good, but they're jamming with it already. There's a lot of movement, so I'm already ready to see what happens next. I'm already engaged. Mom peeking around the corner. They're doing this kind of jazzy thing with their voice where at the end of phrases, it pulls back to a really soft vibrato. A lot of times when I have students who default to that sound, my thing as a teacher is I want to make sure that you have as many colors available as you possibly can. And I feel like this is one style that's very easy to kind of get stuck in and only use your voice in that one way. So what I would want to do is just make sure that they're able to get a very legato line, that they're able to keep the voice on all the time rather than kind of pulling back every single phrase or every note as some singers do. And then let them be free to express themselves as much as they want like this. And I'm sure that they would have no problem at all doing it in that legato way. But if they have that problem, like that shows that we can just learn to use the voice a little bit more efficiently and everything so that what they're doing is a choice rather than just the only thing that they can do. So we all have vocal defaults. We all have tendencies that we kind of default to, and you can always kind of go back to that. But we want to keep challenging it to find the best you and make sure that you have as many different colors available to kind of paint the picture of whatever song you're trying to perform. There's a lot of reverb on the voice, so it's hard to hear exactly what's going on. When in a voice lesson setting, I like to make sure that it's as clean of a sound as possible so that we can hear what's actually happening at the vocal fold level and with the vowels, because the reverb just kind of smooths everything out. I mean, it's a really good thing for people who are performing, because if you don't sound awesome all the time, just throw a little bit of reverb on and it'll kind of smooth off some of the rough edges. That said, I really like the sounds that I'm getting right now. There's a lot of different color. It's not just that like go on and then pull back jazzy type vibrato thing. There's also some beltier sounds and playfulness. And that's what I mean, and that's why I don't want people to get stuck in one color, because I feel like a lot of people, when they listen to their favorite performer, they'll just get stuck imitating that, and then you don't know what's authentically you. And what I'm seeing from Tash so far is like, yeah, that's all-encompassing one person, a bunch of different styles that's like an authentic expression, rather than just, oh, I hear that that's an imitation of something. That said, like, I think in the development of style, there has to be a lot of room for imitation, because that's how you learn what fits well for you. Absolutely, imitate this singer as much as you want, but make sure that it's not all you can do and that it's authentic to you, because if all you're doing is an imitation, that's never going to be the real you as a singer. Totally flipped. I like that. They used a little bit of nasality to go from that flipped sound into a heavier, beltier sound. It went from to a nastier sound and then opened up and maintained that kind of nastiness. But it happened in over a little bit of time, and it was smooth as they transitioned between those two colors. So I think that nasality can be a really good tool for smoothing things out in the voice and going between soft sounds to loud sounds and flipped sounds to connected sounds. That said, there are other ways to do it too. So if you kind of are getting stuck in needing to use that nasality all the time, I challenge you to start asking for different things. See if you can get the same kind of swells without needing it to be nasty, because you can get a quieter sound without being as nasal as what they just used. But this is interesting, and this is cool pop music. Most of what I'm saying is just because, like, most people are not going to be able to get by just singing one style of music. And so I think that cross-training by singing a bunch of different styles and learning a bunch of different techniques, learning how to make a lot of different colors sound balanced, a lot of coordinations be balanced, that's how you can be a successful artist and come up with what you authentically are. And then once you explore all of those things, people will start giving you feedback about what is working best for you. And then, like, as you get better and better, you can just go more and more toward what sounds awesome. So this is really good. I think that there are so many awesome sounds, and it's really well in tune, even though the vowel that they're using is kind of going really wide to really small to there's not a lot of stability in the vowel that they're using, but that's part of what's giving this massive palette of colors and helping them tell the story exactly how they want to tell that story. What? What pedal is that? It's infectious. Yeah, their energy is just so infectious. That's what I mean by saying that you listen with your eyes first, because as soon as we see how into this and how grooving they are, it just makes us want to be the same way. And then it's self-affirming, that cycle between audience and performer. I know that this is just for a camera, and it can be kind of difficult to perform for just a camera sometimes. A lot of people prefer performing to crowds because you have that energy to feed off of. And I know it's kind of hard to start performing in front of people, but you kind of have to remember when you're doing that most people who go to a show are there to support whoever's on stage. They don't want you to fail actively. I really firmly believe that, although a lot of YouTube comment sections totally are proving that statement wrong. People don't want you to fail when they're watching. So if you're scared to go perform in front of people, like, just start. You just have to start somewhere. Some of the tones that we're getting from this they're like little baby kind of sounds. It's like a little bit of a crying sound. And in order to get that to happen, your larynx has to rise, which shortens the overall vocal tract. So the larynx rises, it decreases the distance between your larynx and the front of your lips, and it makes it start bringing out a little bit of those higher overtones. It starts sounding a little bit squeakier. And I like that they're using that sound and then not getting stuck in it, but also using some of those deeper sounds. So the larynx has to be kind of flexible for that to happen. A lot of times people just get stuck in a high larynx position, and then we don't get as much thyroid cartilage tilt happening, which helps to thin out the vocal folds, and it tends to just make people press quite a bit. But what we're hearing with this is all of the flexibility, so that we're able to go between all of these different colors. And I just don't want people to get stuck in one thing. They sound awesome. I really like this so far. The musicianship from Tash is next level. And I think that it all is it's all helping each other, to be honest. And I know it's difficult to get all of these things going at once, and that is super impressive that they're able to manage all of the pedals and the guitar and the drum machine and the voice and the dancing and the acting, and all of those things are difficult to manage. 100%. I don't think that they're thinking about any of those individual parts. I think that they're just trusting, yes, I know how to manage this. I know how to manage this. I can trust my voice. I can trust that if I dance, it almost keeps everything together. And almost by having all of those parts together, it'll help get them out of their head so that they're just focusing on emotion, focusing on the story, rather than like, what's the position for this chord and what do I have to do to make this happen vocally? Like, everything that I'm saying about what is happening vocally, I would be so surprised if they're thinking about any of it while they're performing. When you're in the workshop and working on making sure that everything is balanced, that's where you have to think about those things. But when you're going to perform like this, you can't think about that. There's too much going on. And so the one thing that has to kind of keep you going is focusing on story and focusing on the emotion and on what you're trying to say. And I think that they're just trusting that. And so all of these colors that they probably have practiced a lot in the workshop are just able to happen. But it's really good. It's really good. But all of these things, I think, are helping get out of the head rather than being like, oh man, wow, they're managing all of these things at once. That's so amazing. Yes, it is amazing, but I think that it's actually helping rather than making it like harder to stay with the story. Most of what they're using so far, most of the notes are around the A4 to the B4. I don't think that I've heard them go any higher than that. Where with treble voices, most times they will start bridging around that A to start going up into more of a head voice configuration. You can, like in classical music, most treble voices will start bridging it around the D, the D4. But if we want it to start sounding a little bit more intense, a little bit belty, we want to move that bridge up to about the A4, which is where they are spending most of the time this song, which is making it sound kind of pressed, but in a way that like sounds intense. When they went up to the B though, there was a little bit more release. It wasn't just pulling chest voice up to it. There was a little bit more of that mix of head voice into that color. They're just so cool. I loved that. Just visually, we're like, yeah, something's about to happen, because they started moving a little bit more. And so we could hear what was going to happen before they even started getting like really big with the sound. I love that. Love this. Like, oh my gosh, visually, this is just a stunning performance. Everything right, but it's all done naturally. Like, it's not, I'm not gonna say it's an innate skill, although they absolutely have an innate skill for performance and for voice and for music and for all of those. I absolutely do think that they have just like this base level talent that makes them take to this. But like, you've got to work really hard to get into this place and then just trust it and start having fun. And when you're having fun like this and sharing it with the audience is going to start having a lot of fun. And we're going to start like not caring about any of the imperfections. Not saying that there are like imperfections with this, because I think that it's very accurately getting across whatever they are thinking when they wrote this and when they're performing it. Like, it's just enthralling to the point that it just sucks you in and makes you want to continue watching and continue listening, because you are on their side because of how open they are with their performance. It's not like some performers that are like embarrassed to be there, because then as an audience member, you're going to be kind of embarrassed to be there too, or not want to check in. But with this, it's like, yes, I'm here, I'm free, I'm vulnerable, and you're welcome to this party. And it is a party. Another thing that I was going to bring up earlier was I'm hearing in their voice a lot of using the voice kind of like a guitar or like a drum. Everything is so rhythmic and almost percussive with how they're using it. And I think that learning instruments absolutely will help you use your voice as an instrument rather than as like not an instrument. I don't even know what else it would be, but a lot of people don't think of their voices as instruments. And when you learn musical skills on a different instrument, it's much easier to start taking those skills and that musicology and bringing it over to how you use your voice. It's amazing that like the parts where they're not singing are almost more interesting than the parts where they are singing, at least from a visual perspective, where it's very easy for performers to kind of check out when they're not singing. 100% engaged the entire time, making us 100% engaged the entire time, unless you're a dummy like me who has to pause every 30 seconds for copyright reasons. So we started with a little bit of that nastier sound, and then opened it to a much less nasty sound, which I think works perfectly for this. I've been working on similar things with one of my voice teachers about how I have a tendency to kind of close into that place at the beginning of phrases, especially when it's a little bit quieter. And for the styles of music that I do, like musical theater and like pretty musical theater stuff, it's just not as useful. And so it has been a challenge to be like, no, I don't need that as much. But with this, I think that we get this color shift from that nasty small sound opening to a very open kind of resonant sound. And I think that it just works for telling this kind of story. But it just makes you need to know what the stylistic expectations are for whatever genre you're performing. And then, like, you kind of have to fit a lot of those expectations, or else the people who are listening to it won't really take you as seriously. Lots of little glottals, but it's not getting too pressurized every time that they use the glottal. And so there are a few different ways of onsetting a note. One is a glottal, which means that your vocal folds are starting together. The space between your vocal folds is called the glottis. So if that starts together when you start the sound, it kind of turns into this popping sound, this There's a vocal fry, which is a kind of a sound. There's aspirate, which means that you start with your vocal folds apart, like ha, ha. And then there's more of the balanced or neutral one, which aims to have your vocal folds start vibrating at the same time that you start the airflow. More of a ha, ha, ha. With this, we're getting a lot of glottal onset. We're getting a lot of vocal fry onset, which is just a cool stylistic choice. The dangers of doing a glottal onset are that a lot of times people will over-pressurize that by kind of squeezing with their torso, like getting all of their abdominal muscles involved. And then it just builds way too much pressure, and doing that too much can cause some trauma to the vocal folds, make it start swelling up, just isn't as pretty of a thing. But with this, they're just gently going with that in order to get the sound that we need, but it's not going to cause a lot of vocal capital to be thrown out the window. I also love that they're starting. It's the same thing that I was saying earlier, but like before they even start making sound, you already see the emotion, so we're ready for it. And then also vocal folds and vocal tract are ready for it, because none of this is happening in this very mechanical, like, I'm going to do this with my folds and I'm going to do this with my mouth and all of this. No, it's like, I'm feeling this for some reason, and then that causes all of the muscles, all of the components to come together into a very complex thing that we can't get by just picking it apart little by little. You have to kind of pick it apart little by little when you're working on finding new coordinations and new balances, but then you just have to trust it. And so that fact that like it's all emotion driven and we're able to see the emotion on their face before we start hearing anything, to me that shows like, yeah, they're trusting it and they're at a really high level. They're a very high level performer. Starts a little flat on purpose, a little more of a blues note. Yeah, that's like virtuosic level performing, of just being engaged with a song and managing a bunch of components at once and then just trusting that it's all going to work out. That was really, really fun to watch. The style of music, it's just because it's all one person doing it, there's a lot of buildup. So it's almost like post-rock in a way, where you get this one phrase and then that builds for a while and then it kind of cuts back and then it builds, but then we get some different colors of like surf rock vibes and all of these interesting things. A lot of the form of this song is kind of necessary just because it's one person doing it the whole way through, and I think that it does, because they are so involved and so expressive, you're not going to get like bored by it. That said, if I heard this on the radio, I'd probably want it to be condensed just a little bit. That's just personal preference, because it's like the same chord progression and a lot of similar things all the way through that I think might be more effective as a 4-minute song rather than as an 8-minute song. But for what this is, it needs that much space because it's, one, physically not possible to do it in another way, and because we're able to just watch them perform the whole time, so we do stay engaged. Where if this was just on the radio or something, it might be easier to start tuning out because we're not as engaged generally to it, and we don't have that added visual to keep us engaged. So some of that is just personal preference. That said, I loved this. I think it was stunning. I will be watching your career with great interest. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Commenting is super, super helpful for getting the word out with this. And ring the bell if you want to get more of my new videos in your mailbox when they are up, or whatever the terms that you like are. Thank you.